Some games have a hard time catching on, and the reason for this isn't because of a lack of immersive content. It's not that the game isn't fun, but the problem is that the game can't run on most people's computers. A good game can run on relatively poor quality computers. And I mean, you might lower the settings, but it should still be able to be a relatively good game without that much required of the user. So we're going to be looking at ways to optimize this for the lower quality computers, because 1.13 has quite a few bugs and there's some memory leaks, and I want to reduce any problems with frame rate down to 1.13's fault. So I've already lowered the resource pack down to as small as it needs to be for what it does. And also I've been working really hard to make all of the classes functions into the main function. What I mean by this is that rather than having command blocks everywhere running functions, we have one function that runs what the command blocks would have done. Does that make sense? If that doesn't make any sense, how about the function tells itself to run other functions if a player is playing a certain class. So before we had a command block that said if there's an entity with the scores of class equals 1, and then run a function ... But now we're doing that inside of a function. We don't need these command blocks anymore. So that should reduce some frame rate, because 1.13 Redstone is pretty bad, unfortunately. And along doing that, I've had a little bit of fun upgrading the classes. And I'm going to go through them all, show you what's changed, and why it's changed. So first of all, we've got Scout. You may have noticed everything's got a nice pretty color. That's part of the lang file. You can call certain names into the file, so that's really useful. So Scout, for the most part, hasn't changed. Oh, that was weird. Okay, I need to look into that. But Boost, it makes noises. So it makes 3 noises to know when your boost is over. That's basically it. Again, with everything, I've added sounds just to give the player a realization or even stimulation that, hey, I'm using an ability or whatever. Okay, so I think I haven't changed Sniper at all. The only thing I've changed is that he slowly drains energy. Bomber, I've really worked on. His grenades explode on impact with an enemy. That sheep is on the other team. And also, the proximity bombs don't explode instantly anymore. They have to be armed. And that's so, first of all, if somebody is chasing you, you can drop it and then they get exploded. Is that a word? Exploded? Maybe, I don't know. But it's also so that if someone's in the same area as you and you drop it, it doesn't hurt you. It only hurts you when you're close to it, and that's your own fault at that point. Because with Bomber, there's a lot of tied games that resulted in someone placing down proximity bomb and both players dying. So this class hasn't changed other than the colors. Run still drains your energy pretty quickly. Then we've got the tank, and I changed his sword to make it look a lot cooler. That's about it. Mobility. I'm gonna give myself some saturation. Let's hide the particles. And okay, so mobility, the grappling hook has a lot of signals that tells you it's working. So it tells you, first of all, that the grapple lands. And it actually activates when you retract it now, and it makes a noise too. So that's a really good symbol to use so that you know exactly what's going on. I think this is good. I'm having a hard time getting this to work in multiplayer, but that's going to be one of our jobs today. This guy, Infiltrator, I changed his cloak. Once it's out, it heals a lot of health. I think it's 16 hearts, so that's quite a bit. Other than that, not much has changed. So the problem with the Scientist I had before was that he just spammed med buff and then spammed these other two. And the problem with that is that you always have that extra 10 hearts. And it's supposed to be a, in case of emergency, use real quick. But not just keep healing. It was really hard to kill Scientist because of that, and it made it almost impossible at some points. Next we've got Pyro, and he's changed quite a bit for the good. So before he had the fire burst, which just dealt fire damage to an area around him. Now what he does, he has 3 recasting fireballs that deal a small amount of damage, but do set everything on fire, and it's an instant raycast that goes on for forever, just about. So that's a interesting change to give him a little bit more range, because having tank as the only full melee class is kind of a good idea. So next we have this guy. He hasn't changed at all other than the names of everything. So I'm just gonna look over. And here's one of the, I guess, completely new ideas. I haven't even finished the textures, actually. But we've got, where did that sheep go? Okay. I'm gonna summon a new sheep real quick. Okay. So you've got the normal surge pistol. Does the same amount of damage. Takes a little bit longer to reload than Scout, because Scout's supposed to shoot really fast. But what's really cool about Medic now, or Healer I should say, you can switch between the bullet type. So this is healing bots, and this heals allies. So it's a far-ranged healing effect. And it actually works on everybody on your team, including other healers. So that's a good ability. And you only get 3 of those shots. Okay, next we have the heal beam, which is really cool. It drains a lot of energy because it heals super quickly. And I really like the sound effect. I've been using the new 1.13 sound effects for a lot of this stuff. So every shot heals like half a heart. So you can heal 10 hearts instantly, just about. But with healer, once you run out of energy, you can't reload anymore. And that goes for all of the guns. So if you are not smart with your planning and you keep spamming this, you won't be able to actually defend yourself anymore. I'm realizing I actually forgot a class. I'll set it after this. Actually, I'm going to show it right now. Here we go. I'm going to give myself saturation. So you might have seen that the mechanic has changed a lot. And that's because this turret is really cool now. And actually useful. So it has a hard time hitting sheep because, well, they're not actually in the game. So I'm going to, well, doesn't matter that much. I'm just going to reposition this guy. You saw particles there for when it dies. You use the wrench to heal it now. And you also use it to upgrade the turret. The sheep is there we go. So it's got a 2-second delay between shots, but what makes it kind of good is that it's kind of just annoying to be around. But once you upgrade it, it shoots twice as fast, has twice as much health, and has a 5-block further range. So it goes from 10 to 15. So these are really nice to have. I'm glad how they turned out. When they start getting low in health, you saw earlier, they start to smoke at about half health, and then once they get to a quarter, they start to really smoke. And each shot does 3 health. Everything else about the mechanic is basically the same. Oh, that's kind of weird, isn't it? Because this is actually wheat, and it's feeding the sheep. That's okay. Okay, now finally the new class. This is the one CDR was originally going to replace healer with, but I decided, and Jock C also helped me kind of just decide that we need a full-blown healer designed 90% for healing. So this is a support class, but oh, it's so satisfying. A support class that actually can't do damage with this main weapon. So you hear that noise. Every time you hear that, you're getting a little bit of charge. And with that charge, you can throw shock grenades. These are really good. They do 4 hearts, I believe. Again, this is a raycast. And these, you actually get resistance every time you shoot, and you give teammates resistance. And then with this, you gain resistance and then instant health. So if I take a little bit of damage, that's not damage. It's only 2 hearts, so it's not a very good healing solution. But if you've got a lot of guys grouped up together, and let's say you have, there we go, have full shock, and let's say, oh yeah, you actually take less damage too. Half a heart less when you have the shield, the resistance. But once you're full charge, you can spam a whole bunch of them at yourself and really gain a bunch of energy and health that way. So what does the gun do? I wish I was shot by another player. Yeah, I don't know how to give that effect to myself. First of all, it plays a sound, which is basically the opposite of this, and then it slows you down to where you can't move for, it's just 1 second, and it drains quite a bit of your energy. And so this class takes away your energy to give it to other players, specifically your teammates. Hunger. I'll show you that you can actually give hunger to yourself as this class. If this, there we go. And it's quite a bit, 2.5. So this is a really good class for support. It's not very good on its own, but this 4-heart shot grenade really can be pretty bad, especially at close range. And you may notice that I'm actually hitting Q to throw this. And this is summoning an armor stand, which is using the new caret format coordinates. So what it does is it summons the armor stand facing whatever direction you're facing, and then it slowly teleports the facing downward, but it also teleports it a block at a time. So it goes block, it goes up a block, and then I don't know how to show it in Adventure, but what it does is, oh, I can't do that. And apparently both of those, okay, that's weird. So let's say you throw it here, it goes up, but it teleports down a little bit the way it's facing, and it gets teleported the direction it's facing. So it's a combination of both the caret format and then the tilde. So this is just, it's a really fun class. And you can have up to 4 of those grenades too. So now that I've had all my fun showing you all of these classes, we need to get some work done. So here we are on the main screen. And, well, this is what I've been doing for the past 4 days or so. It's driving me just a little insane. But I've been converting everything to work only in functions. So you can see here that it uses @s rather than @a. And the reason it does this is because the function is executed at the player and as the player. Actually, I think I can find the function real quick. If I switch to data packs, I believe it's in main. Here's all of the main parts. I've broken it up because they all used to be in this one huge file, and now this the main file, that's actually what it's called, reads a bunch of the other files. So here we've got, we're looking at 8 mobility, so here we go. It says if there's a player, then make the commands for creating the scoreboard objectives, and that goes for both of them, and that's only if the right team is there. And then if a player from either team is there, then it'll make the one that's used by both teams. And then if you're that class and you're not on team basic, then it'll actually run the function as you and at you. So all of the classes are like this. And okay, so I'm just going to run through kind of how they all work real quick. So it goes from as, at, so that means I don't have to use as or at in the actual function. And that's going to 8 mobility main, so we jump over there. And that gives you items. That's what these first two do. This is actually a really interesting command. CDR helped me. With the grappling, I want a specific player to have a score only for that player. And you can actually use the UUID and store that to the player, which is kind of a cool idea. And this is the command. But like I said, everything is at S, so it only targets that one player. And a whole bunch of different things that the command uses. And then at the very end, and so some of these classes, it starts at the very beginning actually. We've got if you are on the blue team, run this class or this function, and if you're on the red team, run this function. So if you're on blue, the blue and red are almost always the same, given that the names blue and red are swapped. But here we got just a few more commands that make the class work. And actually it's a pretty small class. You see that I've been trying to group things that basically do the same thing but have very little differences together. And that kind of groups them together by what they do. So yeah, this is what I've been doing for all of the classes. You can see here, if I go to classes, if I open up any of them, they all have these subgroups. Actually, some of them don't because they don't need them, but they basically all have them. And it's a lot of work to switch them over. And I've also been switching the actual game modes over. So that would be under, I believe, is it game? Yeah. So for example, duel. Let me close out of these since I didn't edit them. I'll leave the main open, I suppose. So the main is what's always run. That's kind of the idea, is that the main command is always run, no matter what. And we've just got a few commands running here. Here's all the spectate. They're all linked together because they do the same thing. I mean, they're all parts that work together to do what you want to do, the same concept. So this is what happens when the game is launched. This is when the game is looking for players, and I guess when it's ending. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, I've had to do this for the 3 game modes, all of the classes, some of the lobby stuff like the signs, and a few other things that I can't think of right now. One little trick that I learned, actually, I think, yeah, right here. So if sometimes sometimes the Minecraft, when it tries to look for a score and you don't have that score, it doesn't work. Rather than just setting it to 0 to default, which it should, but it doesn't. So what you have to do to fix that is do something like this. And in this case, it would be working on a armor stand with the name 1v1 play. And this is what detects how many players there are and what cycles through all of the different commands in find, I believe. Yeah. And so if the score run is never below -1000, so unless it has the score that it should have, then it will actually set the score to 0. And adding actually doesn't change it. So if for whatever reason this is less than -1000, then this won't change it actually. It'll just update it and make it realize that it's there and it's working. So you can use this to initialize classes. Let me pull up an example of that actually, player example. I think Scout's got one. So yeah, red reload. That's how many times you've dropped a what is it? Sugarcane, which is the gun, a surge pistol retextured, and you can't drop it if you don't have it, and it won't give it to you unless if your score of red reload 1 is 0 or less. So the problem with that is that it detects it tries to detect, but if you don't have a score, it won't detect and it will never run this command. Therefore, you can never drop it because you never have it to begin with. So adding this initializes and sets it to 0 if you don't have it. And you could actually reset your score and this command will actually work, even if this is all loaded already. So this is a really good trick that I've learned lately, and I've been using that a lot. And actually, oh, don't do that. I can delete these, put them all together. I bet the blue needs to be done that too, yeah. So I'm just finding little bits and pieces like this that help with organization, and that's what I'm trying to focus real hard on lately, because having all of these commands is really hard to keep organized with, especially with like blocks like this. So if I organize it by class, which is what's done here, it makes it a lot easier to find what's wrong. And also, these all reference different functions you can see here. And I'm separating everything so that it's not all in one big function. And like I said earlier, we're focusing on optimizing it. So if there's an entity, like if you use a normal shot, which is what I think Scout uses, and like some of the classes, if there's no actual shots with this, then it's not going to bother running the function that runs the shot. So it saves a lot of memory that way, because it doesn't run commands that don't do anything. And here, definitely, I need to move that to the actual class 14, but I can do that later. But you could just see my thought process behind a lot of this. Some of this stuff always has to be running, like you never want chickens in the world, so you have to kill them all. That's kind of funny actually, because the red team uses eggs, so it randomly spawns chickens. I wish you could disable that somehow, but you can't. But yeah. So I guess we'll head back over to Minecraft and finish up. So we've done quite a bit of optimizations. Let's restart. we've optimized quite a bit of things today, and well, I'm still going to be working on it, and it's still going to be one of those things that is in the back of your mind, because you can't just do something and then expect it to be optimized right away. You have to go back and look over some of the things that you kind of forgot about, like, what is this? This doesn't need to be here. So, just removing stuff like that. I don't even know what that was doing there. But one thing I'm kind of glad about, not kind of, just really glad about, if I switch over to TDM, water works now. And this is actually because I have added a tag with a CDR helped me again. Man, I owe him so much with this. He keeps throwing little bits and pieces at me that I wasn't really aware of and didn't bother thinking about too much. With a lot of the things I just say, oh, it's broken, I can't fix it. Well, I mean, you actually can fix a lot of this stuff. Anyways, this water works now, and lava works too. So, the only problem with this map now is that occasionally you get weird stairs like this. And I don't know why it does that. That's not useful function. I've actually got a command that loads it. That's not it. It's map test tedium. Now before this was, when it loaded, it had a lot of big problems. Seems like it's not even loading now. I think, yeah, okay, it's just lagging. There's the donut. TDM is pretty laggy because of the water. I have to clear it out, then fill everything back in. Oh, and I forgot to show you guys that I updated this map too. Once it loads in, I'll show you guys. Okay, here it is. One of the files was saved incorrectly, so I had to go and save it in a different world. But the main difference is these little buildings up here, and I think they add a lot of depth to the map. For the most part, you're not going to really care that much about them, but they make it feel like this place is inhabited and not just lava everywhere. Remember, these walls used to be lava, but I made murals out of them. So we've got this big sunrise, a volcano destroying some landscape, just some mosaics, and then this like desert scene. And I think that really looks a lot better. It looked pretty sad before with just lava. So I'm a lot happier with this map now. I think that's about it. So I think let's I'm gonna show you one more thing, and then I think we're gonna wrap it up. So these classes are now all scattered out, and I updated the signs so they look a lot better. There's 3 subgroups: Striker, Guardian, and Sustainer. So Striker is like offensive, higher damage, and mobility. Guardian is more defensive and like close range type classes. And then Sustainer is classes that through one way or another kind of help out the teammates. So for example, Sniper would pick off maybe a healer in the background, and Shocksmith would use his shock grenades to weaken the enemy. Some stuff like that. But I didn't just reformat them. I also did this. And it's so good to have feedback, because before you kind of just spammed the sign and then you didn't know if you got that class. I mean, most of the time it was pretty reliable. but I think in 1.13 it was relative to the sign. If you had used at or at p, so I made these all at s, and they play a little bit of a sound. And I just use gray text here because you don't want anything too colorful to be spamming your chat. This I'm going to update, I think, because there's no feedback for it yet. But that's it for these. So what we learned today is that optimization is really important to make the map feel smoother and have a better feedback from people with poor computers. Now, I mean, most people have pretty decent computers anymore. They're not too expensive, so you don't have to worry about this as much as you used to. But it is good to at least think of poor people who can't really afford computers, or they don't play Minecraft or want to spend that much money on a fancy computer. It's good to think of them because, well, you never know how much of them are going to actually be playing your map. I don't think that many of them are, but I'd like to make that audience happy, because I, for a really long time, was part of that audience, and a lot of the things I tried didn't work because I was too laggy to play it. I mean, I was having a hard time getting 30 frames on a normal survival world, and well, I'm glad I've got a decent computer now. It's actually getting kind of old, but I upgraded the RAM recently, and, well, it's not too hard to optimize maps, and sometimes it's impossible with what you're trying to do, but it's always good to limit how much you spend resource-wise on a certain task. And in a sense, it's good for download, people with lower internet quality, if maybe the texture pack is smaller, or even maybe they're downloading your map and uploading it. You don't need 1,000 different things that don't really add anything. You can cut those out. But, as always, whoops, well, that's kind of scary. Thanks for watching. I appreciate any feedback. Oh, I totally messed with that. And I think we might be able to get this done before August. No promises. I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.